Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Ahead of the Chains. I'm Patrick Seifert. Today, no Mike with us. It's just going to be me. That's why it's a little bit shorter than some of the episodes that you might be familiar with if you've been watching the show. If this is your first time, hi. Normally, there's another person. Much more annoying. Not quite the analyst I am. Frankly, worse in every way, shape, and form. It's just going to be me here today. So, don't you worry, you Mike haters. I know there's no Patrick haters, so everyone is really going to love this episode. Really, we just have him on to nerf me, if I'm being entirely honest. So without him, we're really just going to have the best episode we possibly could. And like I said, that episode is going to be a lot shorter. A lot of credit to Mike, though, because I'm going to be entirely honest. It is a lot harder to do this show without him. Everything I said, not everything, but a decent amount of the stuff I said is just me busting your balls. I do think that I am the better host, though, and I think a multitude of you will agree, and I'm going to make my case throughout the rest of this show. He is dealing with a power outage right now. That's what happens when you live in Illinois. As a New Yorker, can't relate. I don't have to deal with tornadoes taking out my power. Crazy that happened to him. But he is fine. He texted me. He's all good. He will not be giving his commentary on what has been a surprisingly active week of stories around the NFL. And I do want to kick off with this George Pickens story, right? George Pickens holding out, not happy with the franchise tag, and I'm not shocked at all. The second he got the franchise tag, I kind of thought this was going to happen. I mean, you just look at what the Cowboys have done since 2015. Right? Starting with Dez Bryant. He held out going into the season. He didn't want to play on the tag, so what did he end up doing? He held out. He didn't play. He didn't go to any of those OTAs, didn't play in preseason, all that good stuff. And, well, eventually Jerry Jones caved. He became the fourth highest paid receiver in the NFL. Dez Bryant in 2015. They cut him 2 years later, so that didn't age well, right? Zach Martin, 2018, going into the fifth year of his rookie contract. They gave him his fifth-year option. He didn't want to play on the fifth-year option. He said, yeah, give me the extension. I've been an unbelievable player. I believe he made the Pro Bowl all 4 of his first 4 seasons. I mean, Zach Martin, going to be a Hall of Fame player, without a doubt. I mean, he's ridiculous. And he deserved a payday. Cowboys didn't give it to him initially. Initially, they gave him that fifth-year option. They didn't give him that huge extension. He wanted the huge extension, and he held out. 2018, he ended up becoming the highest paid guard in the NFL. That wasn't the only time Zach Martin did it, though, because he held out again in 2023, and guess exactly what happened. He became the fourth highest paid guard once again. So the Cowboys just repeatedly rewarding these guys for holding out and eventually caving and giving them exactly what they want. It happened again with Ezekiel Elliott. 2019. Became the highest paid running back in the league after holding out. Jerry Jones caved time after time after time. And in case you haven't heard enough evidence, CeeDee Lamb, another wide receiver, very recently in 2024, held out. Wanted a bigger deal, wanted an extension, and he became the second highest paid receiver in the league. Jerry Jones has caved repeatedly when guys are holding out. So why would George Pickens, knowing that that's the case, why would George Pickens not just stay put? Why would George Pickens not just be like, yeah, I'm not playing on the tag? Because he's seen time after time after time, guys got exactly what they wanted. Even last year, Micah Parsons, yeah, he got traded, which I know he didn't want to get traded. But you know what he did get? He got a huge contract. That's what guys like George Pickens are doing this for. It is a business in this league. It's a business. So when a guy like George Pickens gets put on the franchise tag, you know what they're going to do? They're going to hold out until they get exactly what they want. Until they get exactly what they want. Because Jerry Jones has given Micah Parsons what he wanted. Again, he got traded, but he ended up getting the money. He gave CeeDee Lamb what he wanted. He gave Zeke what he wanted. He gave Zach Martin what he wanted twice. George Pickens is just going to use the same exact negotiating strategy that worked for all those other guys. Because why wouldn't he? It worked for all those other guys against Jerry Jones. So why would it fail here? I mean, let's be honest. The Cowboys have kind of set a precedent that, yeah, if you hold out, you're going to get the big money that you want. Now, could they change the narrative now? Absolutely. But how do they do that? They already gave him the tag. Well, maybe they just say, we're not going to trade you, and we're not going to pay you. If you want to take the year off, take the year off, but we're going to call your bluff. Maybe try that approach, but we'll see. The Cowboys, I mean, they have a history of not taking that approach, and they have a history of guys holding out. I mean, Michael Irvin, he was the first player to do a legitimate public holdout. We'll see if the Cowboys stick to their guns. But in all honesty, I'd kind of be shocked by it, right? I think, in all honesty, it seems a lot like the Dallas Cowboys are kind of fine with this happening. Because then all of a sudden, they're a talking point throughout the entire offseason. And they like that being the case. If you're talking about that stupid drama, maybe you won't notice them doing something dumb in the draft. And in all fairness, they haven't done that. They've been pretty good at drafting. Retention has been a whole nother issue, but they've been good at drafting. But it does distract you from some of the other things that go on with the team. Jerry Jones wants his team to be talked about, whether it's positive or negative. George Pickens and his contract situation is going to be a talking point for the entire offseason because Jerry Jones always makes it a talking point for the entire offseason. Where do I expect this to go? As much as I would like to say a trade, because one, it would be fun for me to talk about that as a journalist, but two, yeah, I just think a trade is in the best interest of the Dallas Cowboys. I do. Because right now, if you pay George Pickens the money that he wants, and sadly, I think that is what's going to happen here. If you pay George Pickens the money that he wants, they're going to be paying, I mean, I'm assuming that George Pickens, he wants $34 million a year at least, at bare minimum, because that's what CeeDee Lamb's getting paid. CeeDee Lamb got paid years ago, and I think that George Pickens and his team and his agent believe he is at least just as good as CeeDee Lamb. Whether that's true or not, that's up for you to decide, but I do think that that's what George Pickens and his agent think. And they're going to negotiate as such. Because of that, I think they're going to be demanding $34 million at least. If they give him that $34 million, all of a sudden they're going to be paying $128 million to just a quarterback and 2 wide receivers. So just the passing game. And that passing game might be electric. But is it really worth $120 million out of the $300 you're able to spend building the team? Remember how bad that defense was. Do you think that's going to get better if they take this approach? Do you think that's going to get better if they're paying just 3 players that much money? Then you throw in a guy like Tyler Smith getting paid $24 million. All of a sudden, that's 4 offensive players that you're dedicating half of your salary cap to. Who are they paying on the defensive side? Not a lot of people. Not many great players. I mean, Quinton Williams is a great player, but, I mean, yeah, that team, they're not very good on the defensive side. Maybe they get better through the draft, but, again, retention. How are you going to retain the players that you draft? How are you going to retain the players that do end up developing when you're paying George Pickens $34 million, CeeDee Lamb $34 million, and Dak Prescott the most money out of any player in the NFL? How are you going to feel comfortable as a team? I just don't think you do. I really don't. I think paying George Pickens, again, it'll keep them relevant. Like with that passing attack, with just Dak, CeeDee Lamb, and George Pickens, and they have a solid offensive line, with just that, you're going to be a relevant team. I mean, you're going to light up the scoreboard. You're going to be super dynamic through the air. But will you be able to win a playoff game, win 2 playoff games, make it back to the Super Bowl, which is apparently Jerry Jones's main goal, or at least that's what he says? Yeah, I doubt it, right? We hear it all the time. It's better to lose a player a year early than a year late. The Cowboys' obsession with keeping the big names around has put them on the opposite side of that, where they've been keeping players for a year late, constantly. Zeke, overstayed his welcome, right? Des Bryant, we talked about it. He got paid all that money. And what happened? I mean, he got cut 2 years later. It's a very real thing. The Cowboys need to completely rethink how they build this team and how they approach team building. But why would that happen? Why would that happen? Because, in all honesty, the way I see the Dallas Cowboys and the way I've seen them for a very long time now is they, as much as they say they care about winning and all that stuff, their top priority is selling tickets, selling jerseys, selling merchandise. George Pickens sells some merchandise. I mean, you see the grabs he makes. He's a highlight player who's going to, teams, kids, they love him. People really like George Pickens because George Pickens is a highlight reel. George Pickens is easy to sell. George Pickens sells tickets. You want to be watching George Pickens play live. So yeah, they're going to keep that guy around. As much as I would like to say they're going to trade him, because again, that'd be awesome for me. I would love to talk about a George Pickens trade. And two, it's in the best interest of the team itself. I don't think that's what's going to happen here. George Pickens, he's kind of proven he's a Dallas Cowboy, at least for the time being. Right? And I don't think it's like Micah Parsons, because Micah Parsons, I honestly think more of the reason he got traded wasn't the negotiating. It was more about the fact he hurt Jerry Jones' ego. And as much as I say the money is the top priority for the Dallas Cowboys, that's not entirely true. The money is priority 2. Priority 1 is Jerry Jones' ego. You mess around with that, that's when you get shipped out of town. But no matter what, George Pickens, I do expect him to get paid. Whether that's with the Dallas Cowboys, which I think is the most likely reality here, and it will be very late in the offseason because, of course, it will. It's Jerry Jones. He's going to drag it out. Or 2, he does get traded, which I think is the better outcome. Not that it will happen, but I think it's the better outcome. And he gets paid by another team. We'll see. I would find it very interesting if the Cowboys call his bluff. I highly doubt they will, though. So that's where I stand on this entire George Pickens situation. Now, we look into the Jalen Hurts bombshell. And, I mean, if you read the story by Jeremy Fowler with ESPN, it's one of the most interesting pieces to come out during this offseason so far. I mean, we don't know who all the sources are, but it does add up. It really does add up. When I read through this article, though, I really couldn't think about a quote that Jalen Hurts had after the season last year, right? After the Super Bowl. After he won the Super Bowl, and how he talked about becoming a better player and the adversity he faced and how he felt like he developed throughout the season. And I'm not doubting he developed. Of course, he'd become a better player. But, you hear him speak like that, and then you read the article, you're hearing 2 completely different stories. Let me play it for you.
It's been a ride. It's been a fun ride, and I've embraced every step. I took great pride in never backing down from a challenge. Always turning my negatives into positives, turning my weaknesses and making them my strengths, and it's taking great effort and determination to evolve my game over time and just continue to grow and improve. And
listen, I'm not gonna sit here and overreact to wow, player says something and a bunch of other people say the opposite. Like, it happens all the time. And what Hurts said in that clip is just kind of coach speak. But if you read this article that Jeremy Fowler put out for ESPN, that's really all there is. There's like a lot came out with that. And listen, I've been not like the biggest Hurts fan, but I do like Jalen Hurts. He's a fun player to watch. I didn't love him coming out of college, but after 2 years, I was very quick to say he's proven me wrong a little bit so far, and he's going to prove me wrong even more down the line. Just you wait. And he did develop into a very good player. And in the right system, he looks spectacular. He does. That's why we saw him light up the scoreboard against Kansas City in the Super Bowl loss. That's why we saw him win a Super Bowl just 2 years later. Because Jalen Hurts, when all is right, and you get the right system in place that is catered towards his strengths, you'll see some great quarterback play. The issue, and this is something that Fowler wrote about, that's pretty much what the piece was about, is that Hurts restricts your offense, right? Hurts' skill set is very specific to a type of offense. He could hit those vertical shots down the field, man. He could run the ball and do a great job at it. And while being able to get you those chunk gains, he doesn't turn the ball over. That's what he's good at. But if you want a quarterback that is going to dissect a defense over the middle, you're not getting that in Jalen Hurts. That's the reality. You are not. And you've never been able to. And there has been hope. Like, yeah, he's an NFL quarterback, though. You practice so much. You're getting paid so much money. You'll be able to learn how to do that stuff at least a little bit, right? And I would agree. But then you see this article, and all of a sudden, it seems a lot like Jalen Hurts isn't willing to learn how to do that stuff, right? Jalen Hurts, in the biggest moment of the game, is out here saying, let's run 4 verts. You see what the issue is here, right? And I'm not going to defend Ken Patullo. Why would you let him do that? Why would you let the offense run 4 verts? Why would you never really make the offense cater to his strengths? Like, he's a very specific type of quarterback, and it's good that you're keeping him in the shotgun formation that he's comfortable with. And it's good that you're keeping the passes outside the numbers and you're running all these hitches. But if you can't find a way to really get A.J. Brown going deep, if you can't really find a way to deploy Devonta Smith in a way that maximizes him in this system, well, we saw Kellen Moore just do it, and we saw Kellen Moore get a Super Bowl ring as a result. Again, I'm not acting like Hurts is devoid of blame, because that article made it clear. But I do need to just preface very quickly, Kevin Patullo is still awful, and this article does not change that. And Kevin Patullo might have been the source that led to so much of this article coming out. But, again, that doesn't change anything in my mind. What was said in that article, even though the sources are anonymous and everything, and even though Kevin Patullo might be the guy speaking out, there's no reason to believe most of it is a lie. Because you watch the film, it says the same exact story. It says that Jalen Hurts isn't going to throw the ball over the middle. Jalen Hurts is doing 1 read, maybe 2. Jalen Hurts cannot make legitimate downfield progressions. He cannot make legitimate quarterback progressions at an NFL level. He can't do it. It's as simple as that. He cannot do it. Now, again, there's a way to make that work. I'm not going to act like Jalen Hurts is this terrible quarterback, but he does restrict your offense. That is indisputable. And shout out to Kellen Moore for being able to maximize that. Shout out Shane Steichen for being able to maximize that. There's still no reason that Jalen Hurts shouldn't have been getting a lot of carries last year. There's still no reason whatsoever that the quarterback run game should have been such a small part of that unit. There's still no reason that they should have been running hitches the amount of times that they did, especially because that's not really a route Hurts loves. But there is still something to say against Jalen Hurts, and it was revealed in this article. This was, in all honesty, a Jalen Hurts hit piece, which was deserved. When you hear all the stuff that Fowler heard, you are going to write a piece that brings a player down. It did show a lot about, and said a lot about, Hurts' inability to just try and learn the offense. He was not willing. He was not willing at all. And, I mean, that's something that, at an NFL level, you can't just be like, this is what I'm comfortable doing, this is the only thing I'm going to do. Especially at the quarterback position. You're getting paid too much money. You want to win another Super Bowl, you want to become this great dynasty that, at one point, this Eagles team had the talent to create, your quarterback has to be able to adapt because you're not always going to have Kellen Moore. When you're a great offense, you lose your offensive coordinator. They lost Kellen Moore. They couldn't make that adaptation. Is that partially because the guy they brought in is, has nothing going on up here? Yeah, sure. But that's also partially because your quarterback didn't show a willingness to legitimately learn the offense. Because the fact is, when they went under center, good things did happen. They had some deep shots off play action under center. But they completely went away from that. They would use it as this gimmicky trick play when they went under center, instead of legitimately building an offense out of it. And that's on Jalen Hurts. He did not want to learn how to go under center, and he refused to. That was detailed in the article. That is not a good thing. That is, again, you're getting paid a lot of money, Jalen. You need to be able to learn things a little bit. And it's just, I was so easily able to blame all this on Kevin Petula and say, bring in Brian Daboll. I feel good about everything here. But now it's starting to make sense why Brian Daboll didn't want to take that job. Now it's starting to make sense why pretty much every offensive coordinator they asked to take the job said no. Now it makes sense why I had to go to a recently retired quarterback in Sean Mannion. And Mannion might be great. I think he could be. I don't think he could be great here. I mean, we look at everything that we heard in that article. Ken Petullo, I'm still just trashing on Petullo, and he doesn't even have an NFL job anymore, or at least an offensive coordinator job anymore. I'm sorry. I get really caught up with my Kevin Petullo hate. I'm not a big fan of his. Which, how could I be? Right? But Jalen Hurts, he didn't want to go under center. He didn't want to throw over the middle of the field. That is key parts of what we project the Mannion offense to be. Mannion is all about the Sean McVay stuff, the Shanahanian thought process. That revolves around you throwing over the middle. That revolves around you getting under center, taking a snap, and being able to drop back traditionally. Not always out of the shotgun. Jalen Hurts is going to have to learn how to do this stuff. And that's why this is so important. Because the guy they didn't bring in isn't going to run the offense that Hurts likes. He isn't. Mannion is not a shotgun-only, spread offense, vertical shot all the time guy. That is just not his style. Kellen Moore wasn't really that either, though. Kellen Moore made adaptations for Jalen Hurts. That's why Kellen Moore earned that head coaching job. Sean Mannion, we're expecting him to prefer more of an under-center type of offense here. Will he be able to make Hurts work with that? This Fowler article makes it seem a lot like that's impossible. But only time will tell. I don't feel optimistic about it personally, but we will see. That bombshell from Jeremy Fowler, huge. I mean, it really is that changes a lot about how we should think about Jalen Hurts, and it explains a lot about why people turned down the job throughout this offseason. But now I want to wrap the show up talking about the DBs in this draft class, because we talked about the quarterbacks recently. It was very weak. I think the DB class, though, is really, really, really strong. I'm going to tell you about some of my favorites.
Talk to me about your favorites, because just talk about under. Love under, okay.
I like sticks.
Okay.
I like double teams. I like 10 seams.
I feel pretty confident this is the best position group in the class. You look at the depth, and let me just say, there are guys that won't be on my top 7 that I think are very, very good corners, right? Very, very good safeties. There's some really good players in this class, but I can only put 7 in my top 7. We're going to start at number 1, though. Caleb Downs. This is up there for best player in the class. I mean, really. He isn't going to be this crazy nickel player. He isn't going to be this crazy player up high. But, it really is funny, and this is insane praise. You can't really be saying this about a guy before they come in, because it sets the bar too high. But Caleb Downs, to me, I get flashbacks to watching Troy Polamalu when I was really young. It really is that type of thing where he knows exactly what the opposing offense is going to run. He knows exactly where he has to be. He knows exactly how the defense needs to set up. In an Ohio State defense, where there are all these stars, Sonny Styles, stud, Arvell Reese, you know how I feel about him, big Arvell Reese guy, and all these other guys that are supposed to go in round one. You know who stood out? You know who was the player that popped off the screen more than anyone else? It was the safety, Caleb Downs, right? I mean, in terms of read and react, it's one of one. And that's where I see, like, the Troy Polamalu. He just knows. And on some plays, it's like, what is he supposed to be doing? Because he did the right thing, but I don't think that was part of the play call. He kind of just does his own thing, and it works really well. And, of course, there will be times where he just plays a traditional coverage role, and he's a very good coverage player, right? He explodes out of his back pedal. It really is amazing. Like, his, again, read and react ability makes it impossible to throw screens. It makes it impossible to run the ball his way. It makes it impossible to move the ball. I mean, he is that good of a player where you could put him anywhere on the field, and he can move anywhere else on the field. It's perfect for the modern league. He's not going to be like this nickel guy again, but you could put him there for a few plays, right? The only thing you can't do with Caleb Downs is keep him in the same position every play. He legitimately should be, could be, and will be playing everywhere on the football field. And he's going to do it at elite level because of what he has up here, right? He's not this insanely high-touted player because of some great strength, although he is very strong. He honestly lacks the speed a little. I don't love him in man-to-man coverage with, like, Tyreek Hill. I don't feel very confident about that. But he is fast enough. He's more than strong enough. He's a hell of a tackler. But more than anything, again, he stands out because he's smarter than the offense. He knows exactly what play is being called, and he knows exactly how to stop it by himself. Caleb Downs, standout player, up there in terms of, if I were to do a big board and rank the number one player in the class, ignoring position value, Caleb Downs is right there. I mean, there's a few guys that come to mind, but Caleb Downs is right there. Just the athleticism is very, very strong. The instincts and the read and react ability. Like, that is what you're getting here, and that is what makes him such a great player. He is just so good at recognizing, okay, this formation, I know exactly what they like to run, right? I know exactly what blocking scheme I'm going to see. I know exactly who is going to be blocking me. I know exactly how to disengage it because I know how he approaches his blocks, right? This player is going to be a little bit more passive, so I know I could be aggressive with him, right? I know I could use my strength to go ahead and beat him, right? And I know they like to throw this route concept, right? So we're going to see this RPO, and they're going to try and draw me in from the flat. They're going to try and get me to overplay some route going into the flat, and then they're going to try and throw the post right behind me. Okay, so I'm going to try and bluff a little bit like I'm playing up on the flat, and then right when the quarterback looks at that corner route behind me, I'm going back there and making a play. And he has the athleticism to go ahead and jump and grab that ball. Like, you are getting a very good athlete. You're getting a pretty fast player. You're getting a very strong player. You're getting a really good tackler. But more than anything, you are getting the smartest player on the field consistently. That's why you draft Caleb Downs at safety with a top 3 pick, right? That's why you do it. Caleb Downs in love with the player. Now, my number 2. Mansour Delane's a very good corner. Don't get me wrong. But I saw Jermon McCoy have a damn good pro day, and all of a sudden, I'm not as worried about the injury. I'm going to be honest, I'm not as worried about it. And you look at just the film. If you look at just Jermon McCoy's film, you'll think this is like, Sauce Gardner level prospect. You'd think he's going top 5. Because the film is that good. Like, he is incredible. Everything that you want in a lockdown corner. Size is right where you want it to be. The long speed, just going stride for stride with everyone. I mean, stop and go. Stops and goes on a dime. I mean, he is not getting beat by any route from any receiver. Change of direction, elite. Like, no one is going to get him beat. Even if he does get caught a little bit on a route, he has the closing speed and recovery speed to catch up. he's pretty much everything you look for in a corner, right? You want him to play press man coverage, he could do it against the best receivers, and he's going to do it very well. You want him to play zone coverage? Well, he has the read and react ability. He has the route awareness to go ahead and play really well in zone. His thing, though, is the injury. He's coming off an ACL tear that sidelined him for a season, and he missed the combine because of it. That's concerning. But then the pro day came around, and I just saw this guy run a 4.3, right? I just saw this guy have a very, very nice vertical jump, 38 inches, and a 10.7 broad jump. I mean, like, the athleticism's still there. I get the concern about him maybe reactivating it, re-aggravating the injury. I could see that. I understand that. But when you see an elite corner, you take it. Last year, we saw Will Johnson fall far in the draft because he got injured. Cardinals got a stud in the second round because of it. And maybe he falls again. You know, I get it. You don't want to waste a first-round pick. But what if he is fully healthy? What if he doesn't re-aggravate the injury? You're looking at the next Derek Stingley, the next Christian Gonzalez. You're looking at the best corner in football, potentially. Like, that's what we're looking at in Jermon McCoy, right? I mean, in terms of the weaknesses in his game, not a very good tackler, I guess. He could, you know, get a little bit grabby on routes, if you want to say that, but it feels like now we're saying that about every corner. And if you're talking about outside corner, how many of these guys are great at tackling while also being elite coverage bodies? You want a corner who could cover guys. And if you're talking about just covering guys, no one does it at the level that Jermon McCoy does. He's my number 2. I get the injury concern, but I think his film is so damn good that you still put him at number 2. But that's not me slandering the number 3 guy. I love Mansour Delane. I really do. He is such a, honestly, safe prospect, in my opinion. I really would be surprised if this guy is a boundary corner in the NFL and he isn't good. Right? I really would. He is strong. Like, he has the play strength where he could jam up anyone, but he also, you know, if you don't want to be a aggressive man coverage heavy defense, you could have him in some softer zone or maybe off man coverage, and he just won't get bullied at all. That's why the strength will still matter. And he could still play really well without getting handsy, you know, because his instincts are great. His hips, very fluid. You throw the ball up, he plays the ball really, really well. And you'll never really see him take a false step. That's what I love about him. You run a sluggo. If he bites on the slant, he somehow finds an interesting way to put his body in a position where he'll bite on it, but still be able to explode off of that front foot backwards. Like, his ability to transition from kind of getting beat to not a back pedal, but like exploding downfield to kind of close down, it really is impressive. Like, I honestly have no idea how he does it. But the physicality, like, if you're running press man, you love the guy. And you still feel very good about Delane if you are more of an off-coverage type of team, because he showed some great footwork. And he showed some great instincts where you expect him to still play well. Now, his arms aren't very long, so that could hurt him. You know, if he's trying to jam guys, the press man coverage, he could be in a little bit of a disadvantage in that spot. He could be in a little bit of a disadvantage trying to play the ball with the shorter arms. And I also did see him get beat a lot with just pure speed, right? I'm not talking about, like, okay, a guy explodes out of a route, now he gets beat. I'm saying more like straight down the sideline, foot race, he gets outran at times. And there are times where he's a little bit too reactive in off-man. That's what I'm talking about. I understand why he does it, because when he bites, he still finds a way to recover. But will he still be able to do that in the NFL? I don't really know. Right? Tackling could be a little bit inconsistent. And again, you have the entire hand usage. Does he get too physical at times? Type of debate. But overall, Mansour Delane, I'd kind of be shocked if he doesn't work. Right? And now maybe you force him into a zone-heavy scheme when he wasn't really a zone guy in college. Maybe that doesn't go as well as I projected to. But I do think, well, again, he can be too reactive. I still think we're looking at a really nice athlete at the corner position that is very instinctive, and more than anything, he has the hips and change of direction ability that you want to see at corner. So Mansour Delane, love him. My number 4, gonna be Dylan Thieneman, right? Thieneman. This is the second safety we listed here. And much like Caleb Downs, he could be deployed anywhere, right? He changes directions really well. He has those fluid hips I talked about. But he's also a very instinctive player who's going to read the quarterback's eyes. If he sees a quarterback make an errant throw, he's going to go ahead, make a break on the ball, and force an interception. Because he has that athleticism. I mean, he runs like hell. Like, he really is a crazy, speedy player. But he could also come down into the box and make an impressive tackle, make an instinctive read, and you know, make some plays in that way. He has a really high motor, and he has a high IQ. Those are two things you love to see out of a safety because it means you're very rangy, and it means you're not going to give up on a play. That's the type of thing that prevents 20-yard plays from being touchdowns when you have a safety like Thieneman in the back end. But again, will he be the back end, or will he be your nickel, or will he be your box safety? He can kind of do it all, and that's what you like about the guy. But more than anything, you love his athleticism. Like, his athletic profile, I remember with the combine, I mean, this guy just stood out. And that's why I was like, I can't wait to watch his film. I watched his film. I was just as impressed. I mean, he really combines athleticism with good instincts and high IQ. And it really is just a perfect blend at safety for a nice, multi-deployable type of Swiss Army knife defender here. I think more than anything, I kind of like him in the high safety role just because with that type of speed and ranginess, I like seeing a player like that on the back end. But it really depends on where you think you're going to get beat the most. And then you put him there, and then all of a sudden, you're not getting beat there anymore. He has that athleticism. He's going stride for stride with everyone. I do think, number one thing I want to see him fix up is, at times, he's trying to just bait quarterbacks into throwing picks, and he'll bite on play action sometimes. So he can be a little bit overreactive in general, but, you know, when you're consistently, like, the most athletic player on the field, you're going to expect your athleticism to bail you out. And most of the time it did. At the NFL, that won't be the case. So there is an adjustment for him to make here. Now, we round out our top 5 with a player you probably didn't expect to make it here. But you definitely heard his name because, oh boy, did this guy make some plays during the college football season. D'Angelo Pons. 5'9", I know, he's small, he isn't big. Listen, we're seeing receivers get smaller and smaller. We're seeing them get less physical. We're seeing them get faster and faster. All of a sudden, guys like a certain corner I'm going to name really soon here aren't as important. And all of a sudden, these corners that could, you know, beat you with muscle and play press man aren't as important because how many teams are really running press man all the time? Not a lot, right? All of a sudden, guys like D'Angelo Pons, those are the corners you're looking for because you want a corner that could be smart, be instinctive, but also make a play just when the quarterback isn't expecting it. He thinks he can go ahead and fit that ball into that area. D'Angelo Pons goes ahead and jumps it and says no. You know, like, we've seen teams get scared away from corners out of their small, but we've also seen teams embrace it. And the results have been mixed, I'll be honest. The results have been mixed. But, man, I just see a ball hawk here. And he didn't really play an absurd amount of man coverage. You know, or at least tight man coverage. But you see this elite speed and just this remarkable athleticism. And you don't really know why he wouldn't be a great man coverage guy. Of course, zone coverage, he shined. Right? He shined in zone coverage because he could just stay back, read the quarterback, and make an instinctive play. And oh boy, did he. This guy was an interception machine. When they needed a pick, he was able to go ahead and get it. He's a ball hawk, man. Like, he'll get picks through the air. He'll strip the ball out himself. And he's also a willing tackler. Like, I get it. He's 5'9", 180, and he's probably going to get bulldozed a lot. But he's going to get involved. If there's a screen pass, he's going to make an impact on the play. And, it sucks because he's probably going to be limited to the slot. Do you really like a slot corner that can't really play in the slot and defend the run? I understand that. But, we're seeing a lot of DBs get deployed all over the place. And I think a guy like D'Angelo Pons, if you're keeping him at nickel, you're doing it wrong. If you're running like a zone-heavy defense, maybe you have him at safety and rotate down. Maybe you experiment a little bit more with a guy like Pons. Because he's a very unique kind of niche skill set. But you're talking about a guy that could consistently win you games by stealing offensive possessions. That's what he does. He steals offensive possessions. He plays that ball, and as teams are getting more and more zone-heavy, guys like Pons become more and more important. Right? He's never going to be a press man corner for you. Okay? That's the reality. He's never going to be that. But off-man coverage, I trust him. Right? Zone coverage, I love him. D'Angelo Pons, again, niche player, but it's the kind of skill set that defenses should start looking for as offenses just get lighter and lighter and speedier on the perimeter. So should defenses. Now, we move over to another kind of smaller player, but way more physical. Keith Abney out of Arizona State. Really fluid, change of direction. Another really instinctive player that could explode out of his back pedal. But he also plays the ball very well. And I also feel a lot more confident in his ability to be like this tight man coverage guy. He has the physicality. Even though he's smaller, he's physical, man. And he's going to throw off on opposing receivers' route tempo. And that'll screw up the quarterback. Oh, I thought you were going to be at this point in the route, but you got nudged at the top of it, and all of a sudden you have to go around the defender instead of just cutting right inside of him. Well, now I can't get the ball to you, and the entire timing of the route concept is thrown off. That's what Abney's going to do, right? And that's the advantage. I think you get more out of the physical corners now. I think it's kind of overstated. Oh, physical corner, press coverage. No, I think the physical guys, they kind of have to take advantage of it more during the route. And that sucks because you have to dance on a really fine line with that. Where will you get PI? Will you get this? Will you get that? You kind of just have to play a little bit more ticky-tacky. Abney has really done a good job dancing on the line there, though. Just a really high-motor player who, even though he's small, he's only 5'10 and 187. But he has experience on an island, and I do think you could throw him on the boundary and watch him work. Right? More than anything, you're getting a guy that's going to blow up some screen passes. And, you throw a ball into the flat, the yards after catch is going to be very limited. But we're seeing a lot of teams, they want to target the flats. Right? That's what they want to do. And a guy like Abney is kind of going to be like that general there that really prevents those plays from becoming too big. Abney, I like him as a nickel corner, physical. Again, not overly big, but he has some physicality to him. I'm a big fan, right? And now, bites on some double moves, struggles to disengage from blockers, of course. I mentioned his small stature, but he has the motor you want to see from a nickel corner. And I trust his ability in man coverage, zone coverage to be a very nice player for you. Now, my number 7 is a guy other people have higher. And I do like the player. I know he's my number 7 DB, but he is very good. I acknowledge he's a very good player. I just think there's less room for this type of athlete. And along with that, there are teams that will take him round 1 and have a round 1 grade on him. In fact, in our most recent mock draft, I had him go to, I believe, the Buccaneers in the mid-first. I love Avion Terrell. I do. I like him a lot. It's just there's some other players here that I think fit more of the defense in this league. But there are some defenses that have Avion Terrell probably as the 3rd highest corner. Maybe even the 2nd if you don't like Jermon McCoy because of the injury. And I get it. If you're a defense that wants to have physical man coverage guys, Avion Terrell does that. And if you just want to spam man coverage all the time, Avion Terrell's really good for you. He is a great man coverage player. My main concern is someone that's this physical needs to be bigger, in my opinion. I don't want a physical corner that gets bullied. Because you try and take the fight to a wide receiver that's stronger than you, well, you just lose the rep. And that's what I'm concerned about with Avion Terrell. Because he's not the biggest guy on earth. 5'11", 186. Like, you could add some more pounds to that frame. He also didn't seem like dominantly strong. I think the main thing I like about Avion Terrell is how disciplined he is in man coverage. Like, he is not going to bite on an overwhelming amount of stuff, right? I feel like generally he does a good job, like, watching the receiver's feet and not cutting into something too hard. Like, he plays physical, and he's able to play close to the opposing receiver, but still not bite on the lightest little footwork. Because that's the thing. The receiver wants to close the window between you and him, right? Because the less space there is between the receiver and the corner, the more the corner has to react to every little movement. Avion Terrell does a good job staying close to the receiver while also not biting on those little movements. He only buys what he knows is you're really selling. And that's what Avion Terrell, like, stands out for me. That's why he stands out for me. How many teams are running that much man coverage, though? Right? He has some nice instincts in zone. I'm not going to act like he's this terrible zone defender. Like, he's my DB7 for a reason. Like, this is a great DB class. He's an instinctive, nice player in zone who is able to play the ball very well. And the closing speed, I mean, it's excellent. He can maintain leverage in man coverage and, you know, force some tight windows. Like, this is a pesky corner. He very much is. And I would still, you know, feel very happy. If I'm a team that wants to be more physical and force the issue in man coverage like Tampa, I would take this guy in round 2 or round 1, 100%. And if this guy falls past mid-round 2, that's crazy to me. Because while I like Abney, I like D'Angelo Ponce, they can't play outside. Not full-time, at least. I have very little confidence that they could do that. Avion Terrell, I feel very good he could play outside. I just don't love a physical corner that's going to bring the fight to you that isn't that big. That's my big, that's my concern. Maybe he gains weight. Maybe he gets a lot stronger. And then all of a sudden, the little technique stuff that I mentioned with him being able to play tight coverage without the physicality, that stuff matters a lot more because he can be physical. He can beat you with physicality. And then when he has to play a different style of football, he could do it. I just get a little bit concerned that this guy's going to be forced to run a lot of press because that's what he did in college. And he's just going to get bullied because we saw him get bullied a decent amount in college. And while, again, I like him. Very good player. He is my 7th overall DB because I just think there's a lot of other guys that can be more of game changers. I think Avion Terrell potentially could develop into a lockdown corner. I think it's more likely that D'Angelo Ponce is this interception machine that I expect him to be. Or that Keith Abney is like this, true anchor at the nickel corner spot. Avion Terrell, what I'm expecting is more of he's a good starting corner in this league. But you put him on Justin Jefferson, he's getting beat. Right? That's currently where I stand. But hey, maybe I'm too low on him. I try and I don't force it, but very often I disagree with the consensus. Terrell is someone where I disagree a little bit on the consensus just because of how I look at the corner position and how it's currently evaluated. But that is all the time we have for this episode of Ahead of the Chains. Thank you once again. I know, solo episode, very different. I hope you did enjoy. I'll see you next time, hopefully with Mike. Well, hopefully his house recovered from that tornado as we'd like for it to. I don't think, again, he didn't make it seem like it was some crazy emergency. I think his power just went out. But if he's not back, you know why. In all seriousness, though, thank you if you did stay around for this entire show. I know it's very different than usual, but we make do with what we have to make do. It was an interesting week of some NFL topics, and I felt like I needed to put out some content about it. Thank you again. I'll see you next time.